She stood at the door, her suitcase trembling in her hand, her heart louder than the whispers behind her. "They say he's poor, with a child," someone muttered. She swallowed her pride, her dreams, her fear, and stepped forward anyway. Because sometimes, life doesn't ask what you want. It asks what you're willing to accept. Aisha had never imagined her life would turn out like this. She grew up in a small but respected family, raised with values, dignity, and quiet dreams of love. She wasn't rich, but she believed in something deeper, that one day, she would marry someone who truly saw her. But life had other plans. Her father's business collapsed overnight. Debts piled up, relatives who once smiled at them slowly disappeared. And soon, the pressure began. One evening, her mother sat beside her, eyes heavy with worry. "Aisha," she said softly, "there's a proposal." Aisha looked up, her heart hopeful for a second. "Who is he?" Her mother hesitated. "He's a widower, with a young daughter. People say he struggles financially." Aisha felt something sink inside her. "A widower," she whispered. Her father, standing quietly by the window, added, "He's a good man, honest, kind. That matters more than money." But Aisha wasn't ready, not for this, not for a life she hadn't chosen. "I wanted something different," she said, her voice breaking. Her mother held her hand gently. "Sometimes, what we want isn't what we need." Days passed, and the pressure grew heavier. The truth was simple: their family needed stability, and this marriage could bring it. And so, with a heart full of doubt and silent tears, Aisha said yes. The wedding was small. No grand decorations, no loud celebrations. Just quiet acceptance. That was the day she met him, Rahim. He stood calmly, dressed simply, his eyes gentle but distant. Beside him was his daughter, little Noor, holding his hand tightly. Noor looked up at Aisha with curious eyes. "Are you, my new mama?" she asked softly. Aisha froze for a second. She didn't know what to say. But then she forced a small smile. "Yes, I think I am." Rahim noticed her hesitation, but he said nothing. He simply nodded with quiet respect. From that moment, her new life began. Their home was modest, small rooms, simple furniture, and an air of quiet struggle. It was nothing like the life Aisha once imagined. She watched Rahim leave early every morning and return late at night. His clothes were plain, his routine predictable. There was no sign of wealth, no comfort, no luxury. Only patience, only silence. And Noor, little Noor quickly grew attached to Aisha. She would follow her around, holding her hand, asking innocent questions. "Mama, will you braid my hair? Mama, can you tell me a story?" At first, Aisha felt distant. This wasn't her dream. This wasn't her life. But Noor's warmth slowly softened something inside her. One evening, Noor climbed into her lap and whispered, "I prayed for you." Aisha blinked. "You did?" Noor nodded. "I asked Allah to send me a mama. And he sent you." Aisha felt tears rise unexpectedly. For the first time, she didn't feel trapped, she felt needed. But still, something didn't make sense. Rahim, despite appearing poor, never seemed worried. He never complained. Bills were always paid on time, even though Aisha never saw how. Sometimes, late at night, he would step outside to take calls. His voice would change, firm, confident, different. One night, she overheard him. "Make sure the deal is finalized by tomorrow. No delays." Aisha frowned. "Deal? What deal?" When he came back inside, she asked carefully. "Rahim, what do you do exactly?" He looked at her, then smiled faintly. "Just work." That was always his answer. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, Aisha began to change. She started cooking for Noor with love, waiting for Rahim to return home, caring for their small space as if it truly belonged to her. And something else changed too, her heart. One evening, Rahim returned home exhausted. Aisha placed food in front of him and said softly, "You should rest more." He looked at her, surprised. "You care?" She hesitated, then nodded. Yes, it was a simple moment. But it meant everything. Then came the turning point. One morning, Rahim told her, "Get ready, we're going somewhere." Aisha was confused. "Where?" "You'll see." They drove farther than she expected, leaving behind the familiar streets. Eventually, they stopped in front of a massive gate. Aisha's eyes widened. "What is this place?" The gates opened slowly. Inside was a grand estate, beautiful gardens, elegant architecture, something she had only seen in movies. She turned to Rahim, her heart racing. "Why are we here?" Rahim looked at her calmly. "Because this as home. Aisha stared at him, completely stunned. What? Before she could process it, staff members approached respectfully. Welcome back, sir, one of them said. Sir. Aisha's breath caught. Rahim turned to her, his voice soft but steady. I wanted you to see me for who I am, not what I have. Tears filled her eyes as everything began to make sense. The late night calls, the calm confidence, the hidden truth. You're rich, she whispered. Rahim shook his head gently. I'm responsible. There's a difference. She felt overwhelmed. Why didn't you tell me? He looked at her with quiet honesty. Because I didn't want a wife who married me for my wealth. I wanted someone who could love my daughter, and accept a simple life. Aisha's tears fell freely now. All those days she thought she had sacrificed her dreams, she realized something deeper. She had been given something far more valuable. Love without conditions, a second chance at a family, and a man who valued character over status. Noor ran up to her, laughing. Mama, do you like our big house? Aisha knelt down, holding her tightly. I like our life. That night, sitting under the soft glow of the garden lights, Aisha looked at Rahim. I was afraid, she admitted. I thought I lost everything. Rahim shook his head gently. Sometimes, we lose what we think we need, to receive what truly matters. She smiled through her tears. And I almost didn't see it. He looked at her with warmth. But you do now. From that day on, Aisha's life changed, not because of wealth, but because of understanding. She no longer saw Rahim as the poor single dad she was forced to marry. She saw him as a man of depth, patience, and quiet strength. And Noor, she became the daughter Aisha never knew she needed. The house was big, yes, but it was the small moments that mattered most. Morning laughter, shared meals, gentle conversations, and a love that grew not from expectation, but from kindness. Because in the end, Aisha didn't marry a rich man. She married a good one. And that made all the difference. Sometimes, life hides blessings behind uncertainty. Sometimes, what feels like a sacrifice becomes a miracle in disguise. And sometimes, the love you never asked for becomes the one you needed all along. Share this story if it touched your heart.